Donald Trump announces U.S.-India trade deal. Reciprocal tariffs slashed from 25% to 18%. India-U.S. When Donald Trump stepped before reporters to announce a new trade agreement between the United States and India, the message was clear and deliberate. This was not framed as a routine policy adjustment. It was presented as a strategic correction, one that, in Trump's words, restores balance, rewards cooperation, and protects American interests while strengthening ties with one of the world's fastest-growing economies. At the center of the announcement was a single number that immediately drew attention: reciprocal tariffs reduced from 25% to 18%. On the surface, this may appear modest. In reality, it represents a meaningful shift in how Washington and New Delhi manage trade friction, market access, and long-term economic cooperation. This deal did not emerge overnight. It reflects years of negotiation, pressure, disagreement, recalculation, and quiet compromise. To understand why it matters and what it could change, we need to examine the political context, the economic stakes, and the strategic motivations on both sides. The announcement that reset the tone. Donald Trump's statement came at a moment when global trade remains tense. Supply chains are fragile. Protectionism is rising. Strategic competition between major powers is shaping economic decisions as much as traditional market logic. Standing before cameras, Trump emphasized that the agreement was fair, reciprocal, and long overdue. He framed the tariff reduction as a correction to what he has long criticized as imbalanced trade relationships. According to Trump, India had agreed to lower barriers on a range of American exports, while the United States would respond by reducing reciprocal tariffs applied to Indian goods. The reduction from 25% to 18% signals a de-escalation but not a full removal of trade pressure. That distinction matters. This is not free trade. It is managed trade, shaped by leverage and negotiation. Why tariffs were high in the first place? To understand the significance of this move, it is important to understand why tariffs reached 25% at all. During Trump's earlier presidency, trade policy shifted sharply away from multilateral agreements toward bilateral pressure. India, despite being a strategic partner, was not exempt from scrutiny. Washington argued that India maintained high tariffs on agricultural goods, medical devices, motorcycles, and technology products. Market access for American firms was seen as limited by regulatory barriers, localization requirements, and pricing controls. In response, the United States imposed higher tariffs under reciprocal trade provisions, signaling dissatisfaction with what it viewed as unequal treatment. India, for its part, argued that its policies protected domestic industries, supported development goals, and complied with international trade rules. New Delhi also pointed out that the United States maintained its own protectionist measures in sensitive sectors. The result was a slow escalation, not a trade war, but persistent friction. Why 18% matters. Reducing tariffs from 25% to 18% may not sound dramatic, but in trade terms, it is significant. For exporters, even a few percentage points can determine whether a product is competitive or priced out of a market. Lower tariffs reduce costs, increase margins, and improve predictability. For investors, the move signals reduced political risk. It suggests that dialogue is working and that further cooperation is possible. For governments, it creates space to claim progress without conceding too much. Trump's decision to settle at 18% reflects a balance between pressure and partnership. The tariff remains high enough to preserve leverage, but low enough to encourage engagement. What the United States gains from Washington's perspective, the agreement delivers several advantages. First, improved access to the Indian market. India is home to more than 1.4 billion people and a rapidly expanding middle class. Demand for energy, technology, healthcare, and infrastructure is rising. American companies in sectors such as aviation, defense, pharmaceuticals, digital services, and agriculture stand to benefit from reduced barriers and clearer rules. Second, the deal reinforces the broader strategic partnership between the two countries. Economic cooperation strengthens political alignment, particularly in the Indo-Pacific region. Third, The announcement allows Trump to reinforce his core political message: tough negotiation works. He can point to tariff reductions as proof that pressure produces results without appearing soft. What India gains for India, the benefits are equally important, though framed differently. Lower tariffs improve competitiveness for Indian exports in the U.S. market, particularly in sectors such as textiles, machinery, automotive components, chemicals, and processed goods. The United States remains one of India's largest trading partners. Any reduction in trade friction supports employment, manufacturing growth, and foreign exchange earnings. More importantly, the agreement reduces uncertainty. Businesses value stability. Predictable trade conditions encourage long-term investment decisions. India also gains diplomatically. The deal reinforces its image as a responsible economic partner, willing to negotiate and compromise rather than escalate disputes. And the political calculus behind the deal. This agreement is not just about economics, it is deeply political. For Trump, trade has always been both policy and performance. Announcing a deal with India allows him to demonstrate leadership on the global stage while reinforcing nationalist messaging at home. For India's leadership, maintaining a strong relationship with Washington remains a strategic priority, especially amid regional security concerns and shifting global alliances. Both sides benefit from signaling cooperation without appearing dependent. That balance explains why the deal focuses on tariffs rather than sweeping structural reforms. It is a visible, measurable outcome that does not require deep domestic changes. Reciprocity as a guiding principle. One word dominated Trump's announcement: reciprocal. This concept has defined his trade worldview. He argues that tariffs and market access should mirror each other, country by country. Critics say this oversimplifies complex trade systems. Supporters argue it restores fairness. In this deal, reciprocity means mutual reduction, not unilateral concession. Both sides adjust. Both sides claim victory. This framing matters politically, especially in an era when trade agreements face domestic skepticism. Sector-level implications. While the headline focuses on tariffs, the real impact will be felt sector by sector. Manufacturing. Lower tariffs improve cost structures for Indian manufacturers exporting to the U.S. At the same time, American firms gain improved access to Indian supply chains. Energy. The United States has pushed for greater exports of oil and gas to India. Reduced trade friction supports long-term energy partnerships. Technology. Digital services, cloud computing, and software remain sensitive areas. While tariffs do not directly govern data flows, improved relations support regulatory dialogue. Defense trade cooperation reinforces defense ties, including procurement, joint production, and technology sharing. What the deal does not do. It is equally important to understand what this agreement does not accomplish. It does not eliminate tariffs entirely. It does not resolve disputes over data localization, intellectual property, or agricultural subsidies. It does not create a free trade agreement. This is a step, not a destination. By keeping tariffs above zero, both sides preserve negotiating leverage for future talks. Global context: why timing matters. The timing of this announcement is critical. Global trade is under strain. The World Trade Organization faces paralysis. Supply chains are being reshaped by geopolitics rather than efficiency alone. Against this backdrop, the U.S.-India deal sends a signal that bilateral negotiation remains viable. It also reflects shared concern about overdependence on single suppliers and the need to diversify economic partnerships. Market reaction and business response. Initial reactions from business groups were cautiously positive. Exporters welcomed the reduction, though many emphasized that further clarity is needed on implementation details. Investors interpreted the deal as a stabilizing signal, particularly for sectors exposed to trade risk. Markets prefer incremental progress over uncertainty. Challenges ahead. Despite the positive tone, challenges remain. Implementation requires bureaucratic coordination. Customs procedures, compliance rules, and enforcement mechanisms must align. Political changes in either country could alter priorities. Domestic industries may resist increased competition. Trade agreements succeed not at signing, but in execution. What comes next? Trump hinted that this agreement could serve as a foundation for deeper cooperation. Future discussions may address digital trade, supply chain resilience, and investment protection. India has expressed interest in expanding exports while attracting American manufacturing investment. Both sides see strategic value in closer alignment, especially as global competition intensifies. Why this deal matters. Long term. This agreement is not historic in scale, but it is important in direction. It shows that trade relationships can be recalibrated without escalation. It demonstrates that pressure and partnership can coexist. Most importantly, it reflects a shared recognition that economic cooperation supports strategic stability. Conclusion. Donald Trump's announcement of a U.S.-India trade deal reducing reciprocal tariffs from 25% to 18% marks a meaningful shift in one of the world's most important bilateral relationships. It is not a grand bargain. It does not solve every dispute, but it reduces friction, restores dialogue, and creates momentum. In a global environment defined by uncertainty, even modest progress matters. This deal reminds us that trade is not just about numbers. It is about trust, leverage, and long-term alignment. And in that sense, the agreement speaks less about tariffs and more about the future direction of U.S.-India relations. I